These conversations with architecture firm leaders are about mistakes. As firm leaders, we really want to mitigate these mistakes. To do that, we need to dig really deep. Today are the 5 mistakes most architecture professionals make when they're new and how to avoid them. If you're aware of these tendencies, you'll be able to spot them and be able to mitigate those faster and help your staff grow stronger and be more productive and efficient and more profitable for you and the firm. The first mistake that new architecture professionals make is being content with where they are. They are so happy to have a job, any job, in architecture. They just got done with architecture school. Now they've got their first job. They'll just do anything you ask, basically, and they'll keep doing that until you or your supervisor that's watching them tells them to do something else. The problem is if they're just comfortable with doing anything, they're going to take their eye off their goals. They're going to be unfocused on making progress in their career. They're going to stop getting better. So what can you do to help them avoid this mistake? Challenge them. Always get them to stretch. Muscles don't grow unless they are exercised and stretched. That stretching hurts a little bit. And I don't mean physical pain in this particular case. Give them a problem to work on that's a little out of their comfort zone. Help them, but when they're done with that task, actually ask them to present what they learned about it, what happened in that process, and then give them something completely different, again, out of their comfort zone. Really get them to stretch. The second mistake new architecture professionals make is specializing in one thing. So maybe you hired them to do this one thing because they're really good. That might be in BIM management or modeling or rendering or drafting or construction administration. They're productive and they're efficient. You probably want them to do that because they're profitable in doing that. But no one can really remain the same. Even if they're really good at what they do, things change. The industry changes. The skill that they have doesn't keep up with the changes in technology. Your business model changes over time. Your clients change. And ultimately, if they're not keeping up, they lose their value to you and the firm. How can you help them avoid this mistake? Challenge them to stay up to date on that technology and actually research where it's going. Stay ahead of it. The hockey players say, don't go to the puck, go to where the puck is going. This is the success. Challenge them to grow a little bit too. Expand, become more than just that one thing. The third mistake that most new architecture professionals make is thinking they work for a paycheck. This is often a mistake of very new architecture professionals. They tend to associate their time with the money that you're paying them. It's a trade of time for money. This is when they're thinking about just having a job rather than thinking about their career and where they're going with that job as a part of their career. How can you help them avoid that mistake? You have to talk to them about their career. Get them to talk about what their dream is. Focus your tasks that you give them or their supervisor gives them on the competencies that are necessary for an architect in practice. This is the NCARB competency standard. Go research those, challenge them to do the task in terms of the competency, and think about what they're learning as a future architect to learn and how to apply that task to what they've learned. The fourth mistake new architecture professionals make is isolating the task from the project or the client. In this case, they associate their value to the task, and there's a disconnect. They're not associating it with why they're doing the task, how is it connected to the project? How is it connected to the client's goals, the user's needs? How to help them avoid making this mistake? Always communicate with them in terms of how what they're doing applies to the project and how the project applies to those goals. Help them associate those tasks back to the goals. The fifth mistake that most architecture professionals make is disconnecting their work from the business of the firm. Even if they're associating the task to the project, if they're disconnected from what's happening in the business, they don't really see the big picture of how the firm makes money and stays in business. So what happens is potentially they just keep working and working and working and spending way too many hours. So if they understand how what they do contributes to the profitability and the success of the business, they could be so much more, right? So how can you help them? You can share what's happening in the business. Now, you don't have to share the dirty laundry. You can talk about challenges as something good, something that the firm is striving to achieve. Talk about the vision and mission. Talk about the firm's successes in the business. So these are the 5 mistakes that most new architectural professionals make and how to help them avoid making those mistakes so that you can have a more successful staff, a more productive staff, and a better business.